I'm Kim Meller, just a girl who decided to go for it. For the past 7 years, I've taken one step every day in the direction of my dreams to become who I am today. A former model turned spirit junkie and lifestyle entrepreneur who is on a mission to help you make shifts in your development. Each week, I'll bring you a guest, inspiration, or tools to help you dig deep within your soul and discover that magic within you. Are you ready to step into the person you were born to become? This is the Soul Digger Podcast. So hello, Soul Diggers. Welcome to another episode. And my goodness, am I excited to have this amazing guest on our call today. Elizabeth is the CEO of Primal Potential transformation brand and the host of a top 10 podcast, The Primal Potential. She's been featured in Dr. Oz and The Dave Ramsey Show. And Elizabeth has lost over 100 pounds and got out of $130,000 worth of debt before Primal Potential was born. She has just pulled herself from the pit of despair to be where she is right now. And that's why I felt so cool to get her on this podcast to inspire you all. And the Primal Potential provides motivation and consistency to bridge the gap between knowing and doing. Elizabeth's expertise is helping clients become radically honest with themselves to stop bypassing the keys to real transformation. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to connect.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on, and an American voice. I do love America. I can't wait to get back over there once all of these restrictions have lifted. Whereabouts in America are you from?
I am on the East Coast. I'm in Massachusetts.
Oh, I've never been there. Oh, I'll have to pay you a visit.
Beautiful time of year here.
Perfect. So your story of transformation is incredible. So let's start from there. Tell us about your journey.
Yeah, it started as a kid. I was a heavy kid. I was just a chubby baby, which probably would have been entirely inconsequential in my life story, except for the fact that my mom felt that having an overweight child was a reflection on her as a parent. And so from a very, very young age, like 4 or 5 years old, there was a lot of pressure to lose weight, a lot of pressure from my mom onto me to lose weight as a very young child. And unfortunately, it kind of had the opposite effect because there were just a lot of food restrictions and this sense that if I wanted to indulge, I had to hide it, and a lot of shame around my weight. And so what it resulted in very unintentionally was just I kept gaining weight and gaining weight and gaining weight while very much wanting to lose weight. It wasn't just that I was just happy to eat. I really was unhappy with my weight for a lot of reasons. I think paramount among them being that I felt that I would fit in more and be accepted more by my family if I lost weight. So there was all sorts of emotional challenges with food and with self-acceptance. And I just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually, when I was 17 years old, I moved out of the house and I thought, you know what? Maybe if I study nutrition in college, then I'll figure it out. And if I just know a little bit more, that's going to make the difference. And now I'll be able to devote all of my energy and attention to getting healthy. But that's not the way studying nutrition works at all, or studying anything. And the pattern really continued. And at my heaviest, I was over 350 pounds. And I was so depressed and I isolated myself. And at some point, I decided to kind of take the focus off of my weight for the first time in my life and throw it into something else, which was getting out of debt. At the time, I was out of college and married, and we just had, from student loans and cars and, small things, about $130,000 in debt. And in the process of getting out of debt, and really giving my focus and determination to that, I learned so much that I had been doing wrong in my pursuit to lose weight. Nothing having to do with food, of course. You don't learn a lot about food when you're dealing with money, but about my mindset around food and my mindset around weight. And I think that was just a real turning point for me in my life, that I didn't have a food issue, although I looked like it, and I didn't have a weight issue, although I looked like it. I really had a thinking issue. It was the way I was thinking about food, the way I was thinking about my choices, the way I was thinking about everything that was really driving the problem. And that was a big turning point in my life.
Wow. Ooh, so from you conquering another problem, you fixed
Mhm.
another one.
I at
Wow.
least, although I wouldn't say I fixed it, I learned enough to change my approach radically. And that just opened a lot of doors.
Mm. And that's it. When you learn how to change something, you're in control then. You have
Right.
this internal responsibility and confidence that you know how to overcome things.
And I knew for the first time that it wasn't about, well, I haven't found the right diet. I knew for the first time it wasn't a matter of you're just not motivated. Because for so long I had told myself, I'm just not motivated enough. And I don't know why, because I want this more than I want anything else in the world. It wasn't a motivation issue, it was a thinking issue. And it's kind of like this: if you try to solve a math problem over and over and over again, but you have the wrong logic, then you'll always come up with the wrong answer. Like if you're just going about solving it wrong, then it doesn't matter how many times you see the problem. If your logic is wrong, you're going to get the wrong answer, right? If you think that the minus sign really means add, then no matter what the problem is, you're doing it wrong. And so for me, when my logic changed, everything else got easier. It wasn't a matter of, should I be counting calories? Should my calories be higher or lower? Should it be this kind of exercise or this kind of food? Honestly, there's a million different ways that all work to lose weight, to get healthy, to do whatever. I had a logic issue. And so now I'm just super, super passionate in my own life, in my work, in my finances, in my relationships, in my health, and with all my clients. Let's solve the freaking logic issues, because without that, they're going to continue to show up. And that's why people switch from one plan to another, whether we're talking about getting out of debt or we're talking about losing weight or building a business. They jump from one plan to the next, but the same excuses, the same doubts, the same fears, the same patterns follow them everywhere. You don't need a new plan. You've got a logic issue. When we solve that, everything gets easier. And I hate that people, because I felt this way, that people feel like it's so hard, that it has to be so hard. It doesn't have to be so hard. The fact that it feels like a fight is because we're wrestling against logic that will never work. And when we fix our logic, no matter what the goal is, no matter what the change is, it all gets easier.
Wow. That's really profound.
It
Wow.
helped me for sure. And I now I'm just so passionate about helping other people see that, because sometimes people are wrestling with the same thing for 20 or 30 or 40 years. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Mhm. Okay, so for example, say someone has been building a business for a certain amount of years and they know how to do it. How can they get from intention to action? What needs to change within their thinking?
I don't know, right? I mean, a lot of that will depend on the specifics. What is it that is keeping them out of action? How are they talking themselves out of it? Because the reality is, we coach ourselves constantly. So, for example, for people who are procrastinating, I'm going to read this book, I'm going to take this course, I'm going to hire this person. They have a logic that says, but wait, I have to do this first. But wait, I have to learn this first. It will be easier when I figure this out, right? So the issue for somebody who's in business and they're not in action. The issue is going to be different from individual to individual, but we have to look first at, to figure it out, we have to look first at, how am I thinking about this? How am I thinking when I run into the barrier? How am I thinking when I say, I don't know where to start, or I'll begin tomorrow, or I don't know how to do this? Because it's in understanding the thoughts that you have as you come up against the problem that you can start to see what other perspectives are there. What happens for a lot of people is their thoughts are so familiar and so patterned, they don't even recognize them. It's like, I don't know if you've ever heard this thing before, that a fish doesn't know it's in water, right? All the fish knows is water. The fish doesn't realize that it lives in water. It just lives. And, it's like we don't think very often that we live in an atmosphere. We don't think very often about what makes up the atmosphere because it's just always been there. And that's the way it often works with our thoughts. They're so familiar, they're so rehearsed, that oftentimes when we start to have these conversations, people will be like, I don't even know what I'm really thinking. I don't know that I'm thinking anything. You are. We are constantly being coached by the voice in our own heads, constantly. But that doesn't mean we're constantly aware of it. And there's degrees of awareness. Some people are very, very aware. Other people are just starting out and they're like, I think I just go on autopilot. No, there is a narrative. When your alarm goes off in the morning, you are actively coaching yourself in that moment. You might not be coaching yourself well, but you are thinking, I have 5 more minutes. It's fine. Like, I can totally get ready in 30 minutes instead of an hour. Or if I was going to work out, I can do that later. I'll start it tomorrow. But the result that you end up with, the choice that you make, comes from how you're coaching yourself in that moment, what you're thinking in that moment. So for somebody that's building a business and they're not in action, there is a logic, whether right now you're aware of it or not. It's not difficult to become aware of it, but it's also totally normal to not initially be able to say, this is how I'm thinking about it. It takes some practice. There is a logic that is responsible for producing the result that you get. So where we would start is, what is that logic?
Oh, my little head was going, oh, this morning I said, I don't need to work out. I'll do it this afternoon. And then this afternoon. Yes, that is so true. And that is why we need coaches and mentors and amazing podcasts to help us to think differently, right? Because how do we get from thinking the same thought to thinking differently and actually having an intention to choose that every day?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because that's what it requires. We just have to think differently. But that's like saying, breathe differently. Okay, how do I start to breathe differently? I like to remind people, I'm super passionate about questions. I think questions are like the most powerful tool in the world. My book is centered around questions. But whether you are on board with that idea or not at this time, the fact is, every decision that you make is prompted by a question. Now, for some people, those questions are, what's wrong with me? Why do I always do this? Why am I so inconsistent? And I always tell people when they say that, because I probably get these emails 10 times a day that say, why can't I stick with something? Why am I so easily distracted? And I tell them, you are solving for the wrong thing. Because when you ask your brain, why am I so inconsistent? Why can't I get it together? You are asking your brain to serve up the very many reasons of why you're inconsistent. Well, you're inconsistent because you've got too much going on, and you're inconsistent because you're overscheduling yourself. You're inconsistent because you spend too much time on Facebook. You're just asking your brain to prove to you all the reasons you're inconsistent. When we start to ask different questions, we start to get better answers. So if somebody says to me, why am I so inconsistent? I'll say, let's instead ask, what is something I can build consistency in today? Or what is one thing that I can do today to establish the pattern of consistency that I want to have? Your brain is always working. Your brain is always providing you the evidence that you are looking for. A lot of people are looking for the wrong evidence. They're looking for, what's wrong with me? Why do I always do this? Why can't I stick with it? And I'm saying, let's start by asking better questions.
Mic drop.
Well, a lot of people are focused on, they're asking questions about the problem, which is not the same thing as asking questions about the solution. What do you want? Do you want a PhD in the psychology of the problem? Why am I inconsistent? Why do I always do this? What's wrong with me? Why can't I get it together? Or do you really want to go deeper into the solution? I will pause and ask myself regularly, where am I right now? Am I in the problem or am I in the solution? When I say to my husband, why can't you empty the dishwasher when you say that you will? I'm asking the wrong question. I'm asking myself and him, what are all the reasons he's not doing what he said he's going to do? That has to do with the problem. But I'm not interested in the problem. What I'm interested in is in the solution. What can we do differently so that you have what you need to do this more timely? Or how can I communicate this with you differently? What's a different system we can have in place? Then we're on the same team, focused on the solution, instead of giving our energy to the problem. We all have a finite amount of energy and attention. Are we going to give it to the problem or are we going to give it to the solution?
Oh, I love it. I have had every coaching call that I've had with my team. I've heard, I just can't be consistent. I can't finish. I started. I can't do this. And this is really hard. And it is exactly as you said, it's all about the law of attraction. So the words that you're speaking are attracting more of the reasons to confirm that belief. And I love how you put it in a more logical way, because I speak very kind of spiritually and a bit, a bit woo-woo. So it's so great to get this logical explanation from a business perspective. Is you have to ask the right question. If you want to get a solution, then ask the question, how do I get a solution?
Right.
It makes so much sense. So
even if we say, like, for the linear people, because I can be totally woo-woo, I get that. I love that energy. But sometimes we have to be more logical and more linear in order to have a breakthrough. So I'll say to people, okay, if we follow your line of questioning, where will it take us? If we follow that line of questioning, why can't I get it together? Where is that going to take us? It's going to take us down the path of everything that you perceive is in your way. What does that have to do with the solution? Do you want to go down that path? Do you want to investigate everything that's in the way? Or do you want to investigate what you can do differently today? Do you want to investigate how you can create a solution, how you can be part of the solution? Which path do you want to go down? Because your question is going to lead you somewhere. Most people, when they're not paying attention and they haven't gotten a lot of practice doing this work, their questions lead them down the path of the problem. They're going to feel worse about themselves. They're going to feel validated in their problem. If I ask myself, oh, why am I not further along in writing my second book? Well, it's because we have a lot going on in our lives and we've just gone through a massive loss in our family, and because we have renovations, and because there's 17 other projects at work, and because we're hiring. Now, how do I feel about that? Now I feel even more discouraged. Now I feel like the problem is real and validated and justified. Of course, I don't have time to write. There's all these other things. But if I were to ask just a slightly different question, where can I create time today to invest 20 minutes in writing? Then I'm focused on the solution. Then it's possible. But where are you looking to go with your questions? To the problem or to the solution? To action or to barriers?
Oh, guys, this is juicy. If you are getting value from this, like I know you are, please screenshot this episode, and I want you to tag Elizabeth and myself on Instagram. Elizabeth, what is your Instagram handle?
At Elizabeth Benton, B as in ball, ENTON.
Oh my goodness, yes. And use the tagline, I focus on solutions.
Yes.
that can be an affirmation, right? I am solution focused. I focus on solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we are with our heads and ourselves 24 hours a day.
That's right. No one will coach you more than the voice in your own head. And look, I love having coaches. I think it's a super important part of growth, but we can't deny the way that we coach ourselves. It's even like you walk to the pantry and it's 9 o'clock at night. What would be yummy? What do I want to eat? Well, that's a very different question than what do I need right now? How can I take great care of myself right now? You're going to get radically different answers, right? If I ask myself, like, what do I want? I'd really love some chocolate covered cashews or something like that. What do I need? What is best for me right now? What am I looking for? Rest. Rest. It's time to go to bed, you know? So with better questions, we get dramatically better answers. And this isn't just internally, this is in relationships. This is huge in business and huge in personal and romantic relationships. We've got to ask better questions to get better answers.
Wow. And so you weren't always like this, were you? Was
God,
it
no,
very
no.
was it almost like a spiritual awakening?
Yeah, I, oh God, I couldn't have been more different than I am now. I mean, I was somebody who watched hours and hours of television a day. Again, I weighed over 350 pounds. I was in debt. I was depressed. I was isolated. I was working in a job that I hated. And everything was like, why can't I get it together? Why is life so hard? And my reality reflected the path that those answers took me down, you know? And I heard a quote from the poet Rumi that says, "Why do you stay in prison when the door is so wide open?" And it's funny because at the time, the thing that was bothering me most was my health and my weight. That was like the thing I wanted to figure out the most. But I was protective of that struggle. Like I didn't want to take responsibility for my role in it. So the first thing I thought of when I heard that quote, "Why do you stay in prison when the door is so wide open?" I thought about my job because at the time I was complaining constantly about my job, but I was still going in early. I was staying late. I was working weekends. I wasn't applying for other jobs. I was showing up and giving so much of myself to this job that I hated. And I was like, if I hate this so much, why am I not putting out 5 applications a day? Why am I not making dramatic and substantial strides towards some other type of work? Like, why am I just showing up and continuing to complain about it? And that's when I realized that there is no situation in which we are imprisoned, whether it is financial or it's our health or it's a tremendous loss or it's a career. There are steps that we can take to create change. So if we feel stuck, that's basically the equivalent of pulling your car over to the side of the road, putting it in park, taking the keys out of the ignition, and then saying, "I'm stuck." No, you're not. You've stopped. And that's different.
Oh, and we all have the power to turn the key, right?
Yes, exactly. Which just encouraged the heck out of me. I'm not stuck here. I'm not in this job against my will. I drive myself here every single day. I show up before I have to. I take work home on the weekends. Nobody's forcing me to do that. And that just really started initially it just started to change the frequency of my complaining, like I chose this, I took this job, I applied for this job, I can leave this job, I can quit this job. But over time I started to see that it was just a lot more than that.
Mm, wow. Okay, so if someone is really at a rock bottom and they're like, do you know what? I can't even find the keys, never mind turn the car on.
Mhm.
What would your advice be to those people?
Well, let me first say I understand rock bottom in a way that I never thought that I would. I went through a dark period in my life with my weight and with money, but it's nothing like what I've walked in the last 6 months. Um, for those of you that aren't familiar with me or my story, our first daughter died unexpectedly about 6 months ago. And losing a child is the worst thing in the world. And losing a child during a global pandemic, it changed everything in my life in a moment. So I share that to say I understand rock bottom in a way that I never thought that I would. And I'll tell you what has been helpful for me 1,000 times a day since then is I tell myself that my grief can ride with me, but it can't drive. And so whether that is fear for you, or it's doubt for you, or it's loss, whatever it is, it can ride with you. We don't have to make it go away. My grief will never go away. I'm not trying to make it go away. This will be agonizing for me for the rest of my life. And it will ride with me forever, every moment of the day, but it doesn't have to drive. And so I say to myself, I don't have to either be sad or pursue progress. I can take care of myself and be devastated. I can make a good decision and be irreparably broken. I can contribute to my wholeness or my destruction moment by moment, and the choice is mine. And there are moments when I don't want to get out of bed, where I don't give a damn about fueling my body well, or writing a book, or building my business, or my marriage, or anything. But then I ask myself objectively, what is the best thing for me right now? And sometimes that is just take your supplements. And sometimes it is get fresh air for 10 minutes. But ask yourself constantly, what is a small thing that I can do to care for me right now? And know that that is not competing with your pain. We are not saying we can't be in pain and also take care of ourselves. The pain doesn't have to disappear for us to work on us, to nourish us, to be present for us. We're not saying the pain is lessened, so now I am able. The pain, the grief, the fear, the anxiety, the worry, the shame, whatever, it can ride with you, but it doesn't have to drive.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that vulnerability. Like, I'm just sat here in complete shock and devastation for you and what you have been through and will go through for the rest of your life. And I know for a fact that she is always with you and is probably one of the biggest driving forces driving you today to make an impact and share this story, and how brave you are to do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Wow. So your book, tell us about the book that you've written.
So my first book, I'm working on my second one now. My first book is called Chasing Cupcakes, and it really is about how I used questions to get out of debt and to lose weight, to do that initial work of changing the way that I thought. Because for the longest time, I thought, I can't do this. I've failed every time before. Every single time I make excuses, I start strong, but I never finish. And I had to do radical changes to the way that I thought. And I did it with small changes, no like 30-day transformation plan. That was not a part of my process. It was tiny behavioral changes triggered by tiny changes in the way I was thinking. And I just found questions to be a really powerful, free, always accessible tool to shift into a new way of thinking about things, a new way of thinking about my excuses, my choices, myself. And so, yeah, Chasing Cupcakes is all about that journey to change the way you think so that you change the way you choose.
Wow. And you're working on your second one as well.
Yeah, I started that one just about 2 weeks after our daughter died. And it is about being in the trenches and how to survive that, how to walk through difficult seasons of life, not not some beautiful story about somebody's life after the hard time, but how do we walk through and survive the periods of darkness that come for all of us, whether it's loss of a job, loss of a loved one, fear, doubt, anxiety, frustration, you name it, all of it. How do we walk through those things without damaging ourselves?
Mm. Yeah, and I love how you say it's okay to not be okay. I'm not saying
Mhm.
put a positivity plaster on everything.
Yeah.
You're allowed to feel grief and
Yeah.
moving forward. And thank you for being that role model and that inspiration for people, because I think in this world of craziness with what's happening with COVID and things, there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of
Yeah.
depression, lots of people feeling mentally unstable. And for you to be such a role model and say, listen, I'm not perfect. This is sometimes
Right.
how I feel, and this is how I'm not letting it drive me forward. I think
Yeah.
be a lot more voices like you. So thank you.
Yeah. I just don't want anybody to feel like you have to wait for the season to pass to create change in your life, because the fact is, the seasons are going to change, but there's always a different season. So maybe the pain won't be as acute, but maybe it will. Maybe a different challenge is going to come. You're always going to be navigating something.
Mm,
And so we have to develop the tools and the skill sets to allow space for those things, the hardships, but also not let them be the driving force in our lives, be the driving force in our decisions. And I found that I really needed more tools for that, and I just want to help other people with those tools.
mm. Okay, so let's say someone has literally just hit rock bottom and they can't see the wood for the trees. What's a first step that they could take to start getting themselves out of it?
I think the answer will be different for everybody, and it'll depend on the day. One of the most healing things that we can do for ourselves is fuel our bodies well. And yet oftentimes that's when we make the most allowance for not fueling our bodies well, right? I know, even just in a small example, the other day, it was just one of those crazy days that was back to back, and I was in a bad mood. And I posted a picture of, I don't even remember what it was, but it was some like very clean, nutrient dense meal. And I said, these are the days when it matters most to fuel your body brilliantly, the days when you want to the least. I love pizza and cupcakes as much as anybody else, but to fuel your body that way at a low point is not going to contribute to healing. So if you feel like you are at rock bottom emotionally, physically, whatever, know that your body is a machine, and all that it has for operations is what you give it. And that doesn't mean that you have to do a 180 in the way that you eat, but I think an easy place to start is, how can I fuel my body a little bit better today than I did yesterday? Maybe you need to drink a little bit more water. Maybe you need to ditch the sugar just for today, but focus on an improvement that you're able and willing to make. I think food is a place to start because we are making those decisions every day anyway. It's something that we're doing anyway, and it has a massive impact on how your body functions. It has a massive impact on your brain's ability to produce those feel good chemicals like dopamine and serotonin. If we are not fueling our bodies well, we can't feel well. And so I always say that that's just such an important place to start. It doesn't make it an easy place to start, but do something small. You don't have to have whatever you consider to be a perfect day of eating. How can you make it a little bit better today? When you fuel your body better, your body works better for you. And that's not just a physical thing, it's also very much an emotional and a spiritual thing. So I always love to start there.
Wow, that's great. And I know firsthand, how important it is to fuel your body with good nutrition. And it
Yeah,
is those moments when you feel the worst and the lowest, you just want to reach for the biscuit tin. Uh,
exactly.
yeah, thank you so much. So your mission now,
Hmm.
has your mission transformed in the past 6 months? Has it got stronger? Has it got bigger? Like, what's your mission in this world?
Yeah, it changed dramatically and quickly. I mean, I love working with clients. I love podcasting. I love writing. When my daughter died, I just had clarity on the type of family that we want to build. And I would say my mission, my vision, as very narrow as this is to build a large, close, healthy, loving, faithful family.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, and I want to work and I want to write and I want to make an impact on people's lives, but like, what am I here for? It's that.
Wow. So when you say big family, how many are we talking?
As many as possible. I'm no spring chicken. But as many as God will give us.
Wow. That's very inspirational. And for someone who's not yet, I've not yet got children, but that is on my vision as well, to have a family. I think, during these times, it's really made me realize that, family is everything.
Yeah.
You can have close friends that are there for you, but, family is always going to be by your side. So
Agree completely.
Okay, so if you can give your younger self one piece of advice just before we go, what would that be?
Probably win the moment you're in. I spent a lot of time beating myself up over the past or freaking out over the future and where will I be in 6 months, and if I do this and I do this and I do this, then by this point I'll be here. And there was just a lot of regret and then a lot of energy spent in planning, and I think in doing so I missed a lot. I missed a lot of opportunities to make small changes that would have made a big difference, and I missed a lot of opportunities to enjoy the people that were around me at the time. And I used all of that worry about the future and that regret over the past to isolate myself in a way that cost me a lot. So I would say one moment at a time, this moment. How can you win this moment? How can you make yourself proud in this moment? How can you create the life you want in this moment? How can you celebrate this moment? It's the advice I give myself now, but I truly would have been well served to hear that and to know that a long, long time ago.
Yeah, because now is all we ever have.
That's right.
Presence is the greatest gift.
That's right.
And I think that's what caused a lot of overwhelm and procrastination, is people just aren't in the moment.
That's right. Yep. They're too busy planning or beating themselves up. Just be here now. There is so much that you can affect right now. You can make a good choice right now. You can take a small action right now. You can build a connection right now. And everything else will take care of itself if you master one moment at a time. So I just think we all would be well served to be more present.
Well, I'm going to stick that on a post-it note by the side of my bed. Win the moment you're in. What a perfect way to end this very emotional and value-packed podcast. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for your time today. I am going to be watching your story and you fulfill your mission for many years to come. So thank you so much for connecting. And thank you so much, listeners, for tuning in. Please do go and follow Elizabeth and her podcast, The Primal Potential. We'll put everything in the show notes. And thank you so much again, Elizabeth.
Thank you for having me.
Bye. Thank you so much for spending time with me today on another episode of the Soul Digger podcast. I am so excited to watch you step into the person you were born to become. Please do share this with a friend, tag me on social media, and help spread this message all around the world. And head over to iTunes, leave me a 5-star review. It really does help to know that I'm adding value to your life. So until next time, keep digging deep, because that magic is within you.